Out of interest,
Yeah.
so you said you're no longer kind of
Yeah.
subscribing to a faith.
Yeah.
Do you believe in a God?
So, well, it's, I guess, very different in
Yeah.
terms of topic.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything points to the fact. So when you look at whether it's contingency, the concept of infinity, it leads to the first mover concept. I think that tends to be the way. Okay, so there is a God. Then the question is, for me, what is the nature of God? Is God good? Is God benevolent?
So do you believe that there is a prime mover
Yes.
or necessary existence?
Yes, there's a necessary existence. Although the argument also, which I need to toy with as well, again, this comes back to the idea of, in an analogous to, if you just, humour me with the thing that I was saying about, you can't argue, you can't really get to ideas around, let's say, and take the free will thing, which is, look, this is in the realm of God's logic, it's beyond our comprehension. In similar fashion, one could potentially argue that, well, we don't understand the logic of nature. So nature, when we say that there had to be a first mover, well, it's possible that it's beyond our logic, where we don't know why there may not have been a first mover and it's always been there. But that's a very difficult thing. It sounds very contradictory. It's more likely that there's a first mover. So let's just say for a sec, right, that there's a first mover.
Would you say the first mover is one?
Has to be one. Can't be anything else.
Independent?
Has to be. It can't be anything else.
Pre and post eternal?
What does that mean?
It means, so you got eternity going on both directions, right?
Yeah.
Post means
Yeah.
after the fact,
Yeah.
pre means before the fact.
Has to be.
And nothing like it.
And nothing like it. Has to be.
So that is the definition of
Has to be.
God in the Quran, right?
Has to be.
Chapter 112, Surah
Yes.
Ikhlas.
Yes.
So if you believe in that, that means...
I tend to term it as just the word infinity.
Yeah.
Omniscient, omnipotent, infinite. That for me covers everything, right? Before, after, however you want to term it, it's covered by that, I think.
So then chapter 112 of the Quran is something you agree with, right? Like this depiction of God.
Yeah.
Is one independent, pre and post eternal.
Totally agree with that. It's not that. It's about, when I say the nature of, we're slaves to God and so on. It's those things that I tend to struggle with. Right?
So let's just say you've got that criteria of God that you have no issue with.
Yes.
Then afterwards, what about the Quran? What do you think about the Quran?
So I've tried reading a bit of it, I'll be honest with you.
In terms of its authenticity and reliability of it being a book from God.
So that I don't know. That I can't, I don't know.
What criteria do you think would satisfy it being from God?
And again, that's an incredibly difficult thing to answer. Are we expecting that we need the real visible signs that God has literally come down from and handed you the book and said, there you go, right? As opposed to it's been articulate, it's been spoken to someone and then someone's written it down and so on. Is that open to...
Do you have any criteria?
I don't think I do.
I'll give you a few criteria
Yes.
and let me know what you think, if you agree with it or not. Do you believe that if a book comes from God, it has to be preserved? Like, it can't be a book that came thousands of years ago, but now it's changed so much that we actually have lost the original message.
Yeah, I get that. Makes sense. That makes logical sense.
And would you agree that from the ancient religions, the Quran is the only book that's been preserved like that?
I don't know. That I don't know.
Okay.
People say that it's been preserved.
I'll give you some evidences,
I don't know.
and let me know what you think about this. Christians don't claim this. They don't claim that their Bible is the same Bible that was revealed.
Well, theirs is a gospel according to someone.
Exactly.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So it's according to them.
Absolutely.
So that answers that for me.
The Old Testament.
And then those four gospels they differ. So
exactly.
Yeah.
The Old Testament. The Jews don't believe that it was that they've got the version that's there at the time of Moses.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The Hindus don't believe that they've got the original Vedas at the time of their gurus. Yeah. But the Muslims make the claim, and this claim is evidenced empirically. For example, the oldest manuscript we have of the Quran is 4 folios and is located in the University of Birmingham and is dated to the time of the Prophet. And the next question would be, how do we determine that it's dated to the time of the Prophet? Well, it was carbon dated by the University of Oxford. To be from the time of the Prophet to the time of Uthman. That's the period. Then on top of that, there's been an analysis done to compare what's in the four folios with the Quran that we have today, and there's 100% word accuracy.
Okay.
That's one evidence that we have, which is empirical. Then we've got an entire, because that's four folios.
But how do we know it just wasn't written by, or how do we know it came from God?
Right.
That's
So that would be the second criteria,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So the first criteria was its unchangeability. Because for us to even engage in this conversation, it has to be the same book that's there from that time, right?
Yep.
So then, are you happy with this criteria, or do you want me to give you more?
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
So we believe that obviously the Quran is perfectly preserved, yeah?
Let's assume for a sec that's absolutely true.
But I'd rather convince you, and I can do it shortly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got the empirical evidence manuscript-wise.
Yes.
Number two, there's something called, when it comes to evolution of text, evolution of language, is something called stylometrics and stylometry. Yeah, and you've got certain scholars in this field that look at text, and then what they're able to do is they're able to converge that text to see if it actually comes from an archetype. And it's a non-Muslim profession, right?
Okay.
It's called stylometry.
Yeah.
The Quran, the consensus at this moment in time, there's a paper that's written by somebody called Van Putten, who's done a stylometric analysis of the manuscripts of the Quran, and he's taken it down and he says it comes from 4 archetypes, which is the archetypes set by Uthman, right?
Are the archetypes of?
The archetypes that was set by Uthman radiallahu anhu.
Okay.
Yeah, the Khalifa, that we say was able to quality control the manuscripts, and he made the Mus'haf and then he sent it out, right? Now this is something unheard of. It's not something that's in Christianity, it's not something in Judaism. That you have something outside of the religion that can do a modern analysis of it, and then it goes down to a particular point. Then another thing people say is, it was written by the Prophet. But then you've got the Quran and you've got the Hadith, right? We claim the Quran is from God, Hadith is from the Prophet, correct?
Yes, yes.
But again, Halim Saud has written a peer-reviewed article, and he's done analysis of the wordings and the vocabulary, sentence structure, and he's concluded that 80% of the Quran is not in the Hadith, and 60% of the Hadith is not in the Quran. Those wordings, the sentence structure, and how it was written. Because those people that claim that the Quran, it was written by multiple authors and this and that, they say a stylometric analysis of it does not reveal that.
Stylometric analysis.
Yes.
This is an interesting thing.
Check it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's written by Halim Saud. That's one name.
Okay.
Halim Saud. Check out his peer-reviewed article on that. And then Behnam Sadeghi. He's somebody that's also done that. So Behnam Sadeghi actually looked at the sentence structure.
Okay.
Actually, both of them, check both of their articles. It's peer-reviewed.
Yeah.
So, and Van Putten, that's the third one. These are all non-Muslim scholars. Actually, no, Van Putten is a non-Muslim scholar.
Okay.
The other two, they've written peer-reviewed articles on this.
Okay.
And they all conclude the same thing, that it's not accurate to suggest that the Quran was written by multiple authors. It was written by the same author as that of the Hadith, because we know the Prophet couldn't read or write, right? So that's another evidence also.
You said that we know the Prophet couldn't read or write. How do we know that?
There's no evidence. For example, a historian would say, okay, to determine something, a claim has been made, has he read something, or could he read or write? Let's analyze the documents that were around at the time of the Prophet. None of them indicate that. Although it's an internal thing, like we say the Prophet couldn't read or write, we've got chains of narration. But if for argument's sake a person says, I don't want to use the Islamic criteria, I don't know why they wouldn't, but let's just say I entertain that. Even outside of the Islamic criteria.
Given the style, nature, the style of writing, are you saying that it's not the very significant percentage likelihood is that it won't have been written by that person because of the style of the writing, and is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, because of the field of stylometry and stylometrics that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is an objective science.
That has to be your objective empirical evidence to say that no, it wasn't written by
multiple authors,
or it wasn't written by Muhammad.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So that's one evidence also, yeah?
Understand.
About when the critiques come, maybe this was written, maybe that was written. Then we go into what was actually the contents of the Quran, right?
Yeah.
Which is, okay, what claims did the Quran make, and can they be substantiated by things other than the Quran?
Yeah.
For example, there's a prophecy that the Prophet made and is documented in the Quran that the Byzantines will beat the Persians
Yeah.
from 3 to 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Now at that time, there are significant or many historians that actually talk about the nature of the Byzantines at that moment in time. The Byzantines were losing miserably. Well, they'd lost against the Persians to such a degree. Heraclius was on his knees. Jerusalem, Constantinople,
Okay.
and Egypt all fell.
Okay.
A plague had broken out.
Yeah.
Susan Wise-Bauer and Theophanes are historians. They say
Okay.
that the Byzantines were ill-equipped, they were undisciplined, and they were unarmed.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, based on all of these things, that's the time that the Prophet has made the prophecy that these losers will win between 3 to 9 years.
Right.
Now, this prophecy may have been made. Somebody might say, oh, you know what, that's something you Muslims say. But we have primary source evidence of a non-Muslim by the name of Theophanes, who's got a primary source book. You can check this online. They've got the scans of it there.
Okay.
It's called the Chronicles of Theophanes, and he verifies that what the Prophet said actually happened within that time frame.
Okay. All right.
And that's a prophecy that was made by the Prophet.
Yeah.
It was preserved in the Quran.
Yeah.
And we have a non-Muslim that's confirmed the chain or the time that happened,
Yeah.
and that actually...
So these are the things that you're basically saying that will give you the right level of proof that it's authentic. The book is authentic. The book has come from God. It's
Yeah.
authentic. That's what you're getting at, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm saying that there are certain criteria.
If you, what you're saying is you add all of these things up,
Yeah.
and if you have no choice then but to accept that this has to be true, I think that's what you're asking me, right? Because you're saying, well, you know, I need to know whether you'll accept those empirical proofs and so on. You know, and I said to you, let's assume, but you said, no, I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
It's no. So all of these things added up. So that's, again, something that is probably causing me to stagnate a bit. Chances are probably is because I'm worried that if it's eventually I think, you know what, this is true, I need to then get to the next stage.
Yeah.
Because I need to accept whatever's in there, regardless of what I think about God, whether God is benevolent or not, or whatever it might be. I have no choice at that stage.
But that would be a follow-on. That would be a follow-on thing. We're going even fundamental than that. We're first saying, is there a God?
Yeah.
Was there an individual called the Prophet?
Yeah.
He claimed to have written the Quran.
Yeah.
People say that Quran was written by him. People say it wasn't preserved. People say, you know, why should we accept it? So I'm saying if you go...
Here's the proofs that tell you that
So I'm saying that if you look through these, the inference to the best explanation provides us this conclusion. Now, once we do that and we say, okay, I accept this, and this, then I'm saying that it then takes us to the next level.
Yeah.
And that next level could eventually get to that point that you're saying about, okay, let's start looking at the qualities of this being, and so it gets to that.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is even fundamental to that. Like, is there a God? Could this be feasible? Do you have evidence to... Because some people will come, they say you have no evidence for God. Now, when they say no evidence, what sort of evidence? Are you talking philosophical? Are you talking logical? Are you talking empirical? Because evidence itself comes in many forms, right? That's why if someone comes and say my criteria is...
I think that can only be answered by first mover concept. I think there's nothing else that can answer that other than that.
Yeah.
Because everything else is subjective. It's... Right?
Yeah, so some people, they'll accept deductive reasoning. Yeah, they believe deductive reasoning is not subjective.
Right.
They're like syllogisms.
Okay.
Anything that begins to exist as a cause, the universe began to exist, therefore the universe as a cause.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like that, yeah, there are certain things, or even matter and form is contingent. The universe is composed of matter and form, therefore the universe is contingent. So that's like an Aristotelian argument based on hylomorphism, matter and form. Yeah. So that's an argument, and then somebody would say, okay,
Matter and form is contingent.
yep.
Therefore,
So matter and form is contingent.
yeah.
The universe is made of matter and form.
Yeah.
Therefore, the universe is contingent.
Yes. Yes.
So then,
Yeah.
do you see?
That's obvious.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
these are deductive reasoning, deductive arguments
I get it.
based on observations, and
Yeah.
for different people there'll be different criteria.
Yeah.
So once we kind of get past that,
We'll come to the first mover.
absolutely.
That's where it ends
First
up.
mover, or we'd say the necessary existence.
Necessary being. Right?
Absolutely.
So, I get that. But, yeah.
So then from there, then
So we've gone from that
Yeah.
to
The
the
Quran.
authenticity of the book.
yeah.
Then comes the next thing, which is probably where
Do you believe that's enough for you to consider the book to be authentic? Do you want more?
no, I won't need more. I'll read it. Let's assume.
Because I've got more.
I know you don't. I get it. I'm sure you have. But look,
That could have been more cooler, but these threw the weight off a little bit.
let's assume for a sec, right, all of that, and I'll go by. You sound like a fairly reasonable, logical guy. It sounds like you'd have thought about it and read it. Why do I need to do all that hard work? When actually, let me just go through what he's saying and double check it. If it all checks out, then guess what? This is all good, right?
Yeah.
Let's say. So then comes the next thing, which is the nature of the being itself, right?
Right.
Let's say nature, not the nature of its existence that we proved, right? But we've got to try and figure out, okay, if the book is real, and let's assume for a second it is, right? Then I've got no choice but to.
Can I just interject for 1 second,
Yes.
yeah? And that is, if there is a God,
Yeah,
that God is Allah.
yeah,
He's given a revelation. That revelation has been proven to be from God. And there was a prophet sent. So God, revelation,
yeah,
and a prophet.
yeah.
Therefore, by implication, whatever is in that book is from God.
Correct.
Yeah? And whatever has been said is from God.
Yeah.
Now it's up to our understanding that do we understand said concept?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for us to say because of this concept, therefore there's no God, I'm not a Muslim anymore. Because
Oh, say that again?
that because of that concept, I'm not a Muslim anymore.
Because of what concept?
Because I don't understand maybe his benevolence or something like that.
Okay.
It doesn't now follow that there's no longer a God,
Yeah.
that there's no longer a
It doesn't
revelation.
follow. Doesn't follow. Because those first two things, that we've gone past that now.
Yeah,
Say,
yeah.
we're there, right?
Absolutely.
Then it's a question of we've got to figure out, okay, we're there. Now do I want to follow that program? Because I've got to then,
So you're technically a Muslim then, according to that criteria. You're in the door, but you're now like, okay, wait, do I want to go that way, but you're in the door, you're now a Muslim. So I would say it's conceivable that you can be a Muslim and question rather than say, I'm not a Muslim, but then when asked about God, revelation and prophet, I would say, I believe in all that.
Yeah.
So then that's a circular argument, right?
then I would say it's trying to figure out really what that message is and what it means.
Yes.
Okay?
And that's part of being Muslim.
Then I've got to figure out probably, I'll give you an example, because some, my family is Muslim, say, look, read the book,
Yeah.
right? All right, I'll read the book. And I start reading the book, and I get to, I think it was in the first, not the preamble chapter, the first chapter, I think it was like verse 6, 7 or 8, something like that, very early on. And it was something to do with those that don't believe or something, they doesn't matter how much they won't believe, their hearts are sealed and they will be punished.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm reading that and I'm thinking, okay, does that mean that if I look at myself, that means my heart is sealed? Because obviously I'm looking at this now. God, no, he's not benevolent. He's not a good guy. So therefore, do you know what? I'm in that boat where my heart's been sealed. No matter what anyone tells me, my heart is now sealed. So therefore, I'm going to.
How do you know though?
How do I know that?
How do you know your heart is sealed?
So
And how do you know that's permanent?
I don't know that.
So when God says so-and-so's heart is sealed,
Yeah.
he's speaking from a perspective of being an all-knowing being.
Got it. So now you're talking about contextualization, and you're talking about literal versus metaphoric. Then at that point.
No, not even that. I'm still talking about literal.
Okay.
Yeah, because
you've asked me, how do I know?
Yeah, because you wouldn't know. Your knowledge is limited. You're doing it based upon your current idea, your current paradigm.
Perceptions.
Yeah, your perception. That could change tomorrow. That could change next week. That could change next month. You don't know the future.
So what am I waiting? So
One second. So with God, He knows the past, present, future equally. So when He says so-and-so's heart is sealed, He knows their past, present, future. That's why He's making a comprehensive point.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you're making a limited point, right?
Then okay. And I need to look at that and equate that and rationalize, reconcile that with free will again. Because you're talking about God's view that His heart has been sealed, not necessarily right now, but across the board, past, present, future.
His heart is sealed, but the question now is,
All right.
has He sealed it?
Yeah.
Or have the actions of the people sealed it?
Oh,
And I'll say the latter,
why would you say the latter?
because that's the mainstream
coming
view within
back-
Islam, right?
Then, okay.
We never claim, because then there's no free will and that person can't be punished with hellfire because God made him do it. If God made him do it, then God can't judge him.
We're back to then the first debate again. No,
But then here's the thing.
that's gone circular.
Yeah, but here's now the thing, because you're still...
Sorry, man. I don't,
No.
It's just the cogs.
Look, I'm going to be honest.
The cogs.
You're somebody that believes in God, believe in the Prophet, you believe in the book. So for me, it makes sense for you to say the Shahada, but the Shahada doesn't mean I'm going to level up and I'm going to be somebody.
It's just words to me. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's what's in. That's.
Exactly.
I'm genuinely thinking.
So now here's the thing. You saying that there might be words to you, but to God, that's an integral step in your life, right? Because to God, words mean something. That's why in Islam, you saying "Mujhe kabool hai," I accept, means you're now married. If you don't use certain words, you're no longer married. Why? Because that's a structure that's been put in place. There are certain wisdoms behind it and whatnot, which we can get into. But that's the structure that's been put in place. Similar even in the court of law. Yeah, unless you've said I killed so and so, that's not a confession. Yeah. So depending on certain methodology.
I've got to figure out that bit about the heart being sealed. Is that literal now? Because when I read the book, see if I'm reading it, that's what I read.
I know.
I read that and I think, okay, that's where I am. So
From
then
your
my heart's
understanding,
been sealed. Therefore,
But you've
I
done
am
the
gonna
right
be-
thing though, because the Quran says if you don't know, ask someone of knowledge. And that's what you're doing. You're asking.
man.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You are actually following the Quran, ironically as well, because that's what we're told. You're not going to understand everything.
I've been meaning to come and I ride, so every now and then, probably a couple of years back, I've been through, and I stopped by and I listened to what you were saying. I thought, one day I'll come back and I'll ask him.
Oh, okay, that's
'Cause
great.
It gives me something to think about.
Absolutely, brother. And that's what you're doing. The people that have told you don't think about X, don't think about Y, they could be saying it because of multiple reasons. One reason is because, I'm going to be honest, this is a niche specialism. Yeah?
What do you mean?
Specialism in the sense that it's a niche branch of Aqidah belief. Any layperson will not have delved so deeply into it because in order to...
Surely everyone does.
No, everyone wouldn't.
Everyone's thought this stuff, man. Come on.
No, they may have thought it, but for them to think it and conclude a contradiction will be different. Somebody to think it and think, you know what, this is one of the mutashabihat. That's another. Mutashabihat is something which is unclear.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are certain verses. Yeah, like Alif Lam Mim. No one knows what it means.
Okay.
It's a mutashabihat is unclear.
That's the problem. I don't buy unclear.
Exactly.
That's the issue I've got. That leads me to paralysis.
So we say the things that are absolutely fundamental for a person's belief are clear. The things that are non-fundamental, they are not going to be unclear. Now, if someone says they don't know, you're more than welcome to ask somebody who does know. That doesn't now mean just because they told you they don't know and don't ask, it doesn't mean that that's now written in stone and that's revelation. It means they tapped out. So you now go to somebody with, with a deeper understanding about said topic. Like if you were to ask me certain things about comparative religion, I'll probably, with all due respect, I've got friends that are imams. They won't be able to answer those specialistic questions because I spend my time.
But these are. What do you mean? Like these are core. If you don't get through this, you can't. I mean, these are when you say these are the core things.
I'll tell you. Okay, let me go even
I'm sure
fundamental.
explaining myself better, but I think you get it.
Yeah. Let's just go even more fundamental than this.
Yeah.
Let's just say, for argument's sake, God knows everything and this and that. Do we know? We don't know. So do we go about living our lives as if we're being controlled in robots?
Yeah.
Or do we continue being responsible for our decisions and choices?
Yeah.
The atheistic philosophers,
Yeah.
actually, you know what? An atheist like Richard Dawkins was speaking to Ricky Gervais. Yeah.
If in doubt, don't be an arsehole, I think is what you speak to, right?
No, not at that level. But Richard Dawkins believes in determinism, right?
Right, yeah.
He believes that we are, slave to the elements, a slave to our biology,
Yes.
evolution, etc. We
yes,
can't control it, right?
Yes.
Now the question is, if someone commits a crime,
Yeah.
why stick him in jail then?
Yeah. I guess the question for Richard Dawkins has got to be, forget all.
No, Dawkins actually says
So when-
we have got to do it anyway.
Dawkins is talking about those very small steps that you take for evolution and so on. That doesn't, I don't think it really answers moral compass, the true essence of where moral compass comes from. I don't think
His
how does he
argument,
answer that? I don't get.
his moral compass is anything that's beneficial for survival
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
Quote unquote good. They don't believe in good and bad,
That
right?
means I'm going to eat you,
Yeah.
right?
So then, that's according to him, maybe that might be okay one day.
So-
But the point here that I'm saying is
Yes.
that they
Yes.
who are determinists conclude that we still need to put the bad guys in jail. We still need to do this, even
Yes.
though we may not understand it.
Yes.
We may not
Exactly.
grasp it.
I get it.
But we still do it. So I'm saying that even if you go fundamentally, it
Yeah.
doesn't affect our day-to-day living. No one's going to say, "Oh, God made me do this, therefore I can slap you in the face." You can still complain to the police, and I will still be arrested.
Yeah.
Because what not?
Yeah.
So I'm saying on a fundamental level, it doesn't. There's no contradictions on a fundamental level. If a person goes into it, I gave you the response of even philosophically, that knowledge does not equate to coercion. So even philosophically,
I still need to grasp. I need to get a grip of that.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
still not there.
exactly.
Okay, with knowledge and coercion. But regardless of that, I think
Ooh, principle of sufficient. No. I thought it came to me.
even if I get there, it's still going to be okay. No, I need to get there. I need to
Yeah.
get to that because that will help answer the issue that I have with the contradiction of God's knowledge of the future. You're saying knowledge does not lead to coercion.
There's a
I
very-
need to.
There's a very good video. There's a couple of videos that you can watch. If you type in free will
Yeah.
and then towards eternity.
Free will towards eternity.
Yeah, free will, one word, and then
Yeah.
towards eternity, another word.
Okay.
There are a couple of videos that were done, filmed really nicely,
Okay.
and they kind of wrestle with this, and I think they do a very good job.
All right. Let me look at those.
Yeah, check
All right.
that out. And on Sapiens, they also talk about free will.
Okay.
So that's an academic Islamic site that deals with philosophy, these issues like Euthyphro's dilemma and all of these sorts of things,
Okay.
and it breaks it down.
Free will
according-
towards eternity.
Yeah, so free will
Yeah.
towards eternity.
Towards eternity.
They've
I'm an old
got-
man, so I forget things.
Yeah. You can write it down if you want. Yeah. You know what? Let me write it down for you, and you can just take a picture of it. If you...
Oh, you know what? That's perfect. If you
Yeah.
could. 'Cause
So free
that's
will.
me being lazy. I should have just
No,
written it
no
down.
worries.
My apologies.
No worries.
Do you know what? Let me just write it. Let me just write it. Don't worry.
If you just take it, because I've given you two.
Yep.
So free will towards eternity. That should give you two videos.
Got it.
And that gives you an academic
All right.
article
All right. Good.
that goes in more detail, which I think is what you want.
All right. Good. Now, once I go through those, and if I have more questions, what do I do?
So then,
I
with
need to come back here on a Sunday.
you could do, or Sapiens, the second one.
Yes.
They've got something called the Lighthouse Mentoring Program,
Okay.
which you can go on. It's a free service.
Okay.
And you can book a slot with them, and there will be somebody on the other side that will be able to go through this with you in more detail.
Muslims?
He's Muslim.
Maybe this is what I need.
Yeah. His name's most likely it's going to be him, but I don't want to give you his name in case.
Have you seen many people in my position?
To
You're
be
here
honest-
week in, week out. So is this what you see on a regular basis?
Free will, free will is a question that gets asked, but it gets asked by Muslims. I haven't come across anybody that's used that as a justification for disbelief, because I just don't think the two follow. It's a gripe of
Because you're talking knowledge to coercion.
Yeah, because as an internal kind of thing, it's an internal issue of understanding and compatibility that people are having. It doesn't mean that God no longer exists now, or the Quran is no longer God's word, or the Prophet no longer exists. Those three are still there.
Yeah.
It's an issue pertaining understanding of.
Yeah, those two things, the God's free will and the questions around the Quran, those are mutually exclusive things.
So would it make sense, do you think, for you to say the Shahada because you are pretty much a Muslim?
I don't think I'm there yet.
No worries.
I've still got. I need to.
Because I believe you're there already, by the way, and you saying the words.
But me trying to figure out whether God is good or not is something that's different then.
What do you mean God's good?
Look, we've talked about.
Is that to do with free will, yeah?
No.
Okay.
Possibly partially, but also I need to think about.
Tell me more about this good thing.
Does God's ego? Why does God need slaves? Why do we need to be a slave to God? Why does God need all that? And
the term slave, how do you understand the term slave?
Our submission to God.
Yeah. So I'm sure when you were young you submitted to your mother.
Yeah.
Does that mean
that's a bad example.
Do you see?
That's a bad example.
When you go to work, you're submitting to your boss.
Yeah.
Does that mean your boss is now evil?
Yeah. Why does God need worship? I guess those.
It's not about God needing.
Why does God need worship?
It's about God deserving worship.
He doesn't need worship, but he deserves it.
He doesn't need it.
But he's told us to worship him.
So here's the thing. When we are set to, someone gives you a gift, right?
Yeah.
Now that gift, there's not gonna be hopefully a time where someone gives you a really expensive gift and you go, you know what, I'm not gonna thank him because you know what, he's hoping for it, he expects it. If I don't give him, he's gonna take it back. It's just common courtesy and etiquette, right? That it's if A, then B. If God has given you something, if someone has given you a gift, therefore gratitude is an order.
But then
gratitude is
please.
So gratitude is worship. I'd say it's just a synonym of worship, right?
But gratitude shouldn't be forced.
It's not forced.
But if I don't worship, I go to hell.
No. So here's now the thing. The Quran says there's no compulsion in religion. There's no compulsion in religion means you cannot force somebody to accept Islam. They accept Islam when Islam is presented to them, and listen to this point, yeah? If someone is presented with Islam and they accept it in their head, it makes sense to them. Then they actively reject it. Meaning, according to their brain, it made sense to them. But they rejected it.
Okay.
That person goes to the hellfire because it.
I'm in trouble.
No. You're not listening to me. That's the thing.
Okay.
Accepting Islam means it makes sense to you. It's logically coherent.
All right.
You have rationalized it and said, yes, this is the truth.
Okay.
That's why I said you need to pay attention.
That's good.
Yes.
I got it. I'm listening.
Yes.
I'm listening.
So if a person says this is the truth, it makes sense, it ties all the things together, but I'm still going to reject it. That person goes to the hellfire. 100%.
Okay.
Now listen. Now here's the other point now, because I have to mention the other point.
Well.
If somebody, the message has not reached them,
Okay.
or it has reached them in a corrupted form,
Yes.
or somebody may have claimed to pass it on to them, but they have not understood it, it doesn't make sense to them, they are not necessarily mukallaf, i.e. they will not necessarily be held to blame. They may be given another test on the Day of Judgment. Some even say there might be another fate to them. Both positive.
Okay. Are you saying that my saving grace at the moment is that because if I accept it, but I haven't made sense of it? If you've made sense of it and then you reject it, then then it's hellfire. Are you saying my saving grace at the moment is because I haven't made sense of it?
To me, from the conversation that we've had, it seems like you're a sincere person that's grappling with certain ideas.
Yes.
So I don't claim that, because so-and-so has given you the message, therefore you're now mukallaf. Now that's it.
Yeah.
Bro, I don't know how you're processing things in your head.
No, I get it. Yeah.
So based on that, it's when you have that crystallizing moment and you're like, it 100% makes sense to me.
I need to go think now about the idea that you talked about, gratitude.
Yeah.
Right? That's a really important word.
Yeah.
So gratitude, you're saying that if you're a Muslim, then you accepting that gratitude is not forced. Sorry, for you to show gratitude, that's not forced on you. Is what you're saying.
It's a natural consequence of living.
However, if you read the book, if you're from what I understand of the religion, if you are not worshipping God, if you're not showing gratitude, then you will go to hell.
What, by not showing gratitude to the people?
Yeah, that forced gratitude. So gratitude to God, i.e. worship.
Right.
Gratitude, we talked about worship and you said gratitude.
Right.
You used the word kind of
So then,
interchangeably.
yeah, so then we're moving from gratitude to now physical acts of worship, right? Because one is, I'm grateful and I understand that God is deserving of
To
worship.
the question though, was
Yeah.
why does God need worship? And you mentioned gratitude.
Yes.
And the
Because I was saying worship is gratitude, right?
yes,
It's
exactly.
a form.
You said if someone gives you something, you're going to show gratitude.
Yes.
It's common courtesy to show gratitude. But I'm not told that I need to show gratitude because I received a gift. I do it myself. It's common courtesy. But
How do you know how to do it?
Say again?
How do you know how to do it?
How do I know how to do it?
And if you didn't do it, are you saying there would be no societal pressure that friend would not, next time, not give you a gift? Of course you're supposed to do it.
You're talking about where moral compass comes from now.
Even I would argue,
Talking about where moral compass comes from.
No, I'm saying, where do we draw the line between coercion and choice? Because someone gives you a gift, are you now coerced to thanking that person? Or do you feel pressured by society to do it?
But is the Quran not saying, okay, look, don't feel coerced, do it because you want to do it. However, if you don't do it, it's going to be trouble.
Right, so dealing with this position in particular, if a person believes that there is a God who's created him, sustains him, maintains him, there is a prophet that he sent for us to live properly and the best way possible, and a book that answers our questions. And that book says that to show gratitude to God, you must worship God. This is the way that you worship God. If you don't worship God, then these are the effects that it can have on you, they can have on society, etc. Yes, of course.
You gave the analogy that if your parents give you a gift, you show gratitude. If I don't show gratitude, my parents aren't going to beat me.
No, you're conflating many things together, yeah? One is a verbal gratitude. So we were talking about a verbal gratitude when someone gives you something. Then there's another gratitude which hopefully you'll do one day, which is a verbal gratitude of doing shahada. That you testify there's none worthy of worship besides Allah and Muhammad is a messenger of God. That's a verbal gratitude, acknowledgement of God's oneness. Then it's going to physical acts of worship. Why now are there physical acts of worship? So they are different categories.
I think I've now got to reconcile that bit around. If gratitude is generally something that just comes from the heart, okay, if someone is now telling me, yep, that's great, however, I need to prescribe to you how you're going to show gratitude. I'm going to show you, contextualize and give you the rules and to show this is, and if you don't do it in this way at this time, then you're going to be in trouble.
Absolutely. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
You understand my...
I do. So a God has created you. Yeah, made you, mashallah, very healthy, given you an amazing bike, and you're able to, decide when you want to do something and do this and do that.
He's also put the pounds on for me as well.
I'm not exempt from that.
Okay.
So these things are there. You know this God exists. You know He sent you a prophet. You know He sent you a revelation that's there and all of that.
Remember that.
And then now He's saying, for you to show gratitude, this is how I want it. And He is the all-powerful, the all-knowledgeable. And you knowing He's all-knowledgeable and all-powerful, that He does and tells you to do things that are for your benefit, and you say, no, you know what, my limited understanding tells me this, but I've already acknowledged you're the all-knowing, you're the all-powerful. No, I'm going to say no to that, because in my limited understanding, this is the way I show gratitude. I think that's incoherent. I think that just doesn't make sense. The all-knowing, the all-powerful that you've acknowledged has told you to do something, then by deductive reasoning, it then follows that whatever he tells you is for your benefit, for the benefit of society and whatnot. It may sound a bit iffy based on your programming, based on the way society has told you and viewed God. Like, we're in a society that's capitalistic, liberalism, nihilistic, talking about lack of purpose to existentialism and absurdism and nihilism. I mean, all of these things affect our literature. They affect our schooling system.
Yeah.
They affect our movies,
Yeah.
our programs, our music.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to say that none of that has any effect on how we view life, of course not. And if I was to ask, have you read Ibn Rushd? Have you read Al-Ghazali? Have you read Ibn Taymiyyah? Have you read Avicenna? So these are, philosophers within Islam that gripe and deal with these issues.
Right.
Yeah, and there's copious, volumes written by them. Like Ghazali has written Ihya Ulumuddin, a copious volume. Ibn Rushd has gone into like fiqh and jurisprudence.
You know those two links you sent me? When I go into them, I can ask these guys about these philosophers.
You can do, yeah.
I won't remember these names.
Of course.
But they'll know the names, right?
They know them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then maybe that's the next thing.
So then think, look, you're in a society that pushes individualism, liberalism, materialism. What are you doing to balance that? You're saying even the Quran, you haven't necessarily read fully, the tafsirs you haven't read fully,
Yeah.
the commentaries pertaining these ideas by Al-Ghazali you haven't read fully, then of course you're going to find it difficult because your empiricism,
Yep.
the empirical kind of thing is, epistemological framework
Okay.
is coming from a liberalism backdrop.
Yes.
So I'm saying that you need to balance that out for you to be. For example, let me give you an example.
That's the nature that God's give.
No.
Okay.
No.
Right. Look.
So for example, if you're born in a certain culture, if you're born in a tribe in an Amazon jungle,
I can't shut my mind down.
I'm here with your open mind.
Right? You get it, right? So I can't.
Absolutely. All I asked was an open mind, and you give me an open mind. That's what more can I ask for?
Yeah.
I don't want the shut mind.
All right. Okay. All right. I've got some reading to do, haven't I?
Balance it. Somebody said,
Yeah.
a man that has no money, and a woman that is not beautiful, they see the world for what it is. Hi.
Look, I was.
You know what I mean? Deep this for 1 second.
Yeah.
This is an example of social constructs that have been put in place that
Yes.
inform our thinking.
Yes.
When a person reaches a certain kind of thing where a person can understand, this is called, there's a study done by a scholar. They're saying what is a truly intelligent person or somebody with high IQ, and that it's called a metacognition. That you are able to see the thoughts as you're making them, and you're able to say, why am I saying this? Why am I able to do that? Why am I doing this and that? That's metacognition.
Okay.
Yeah, not everybody reaches that. And for that, those people, if they haven't got the message of Islam and this and that, Allah has another solution for them, which is another test. Right? Allah understands that, certain people, they're unable to, be objective. Allah's created them. Allah's not going to, force the criteria on them that they're unable to do. For the people that can be, I believe that if you do read the opposing side of the framework that you're talking about, you will be more objective in your thinking when you see the epistemology of Islam, as opposed to just liberalism.
What you're saying is, if I get beyond that, that means that. So when I think about, the usual type of questions, right, which is suffering in the world, well, the stuff, you get it, right?
Yeah.
So all of that is theoretically a stage prop, so that I will worship. It's a test, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you this abhorrence. I'm going to show you some really bad stuff, so that I want you to worship me. So those things are a stage prop, right? And again, from what you're saying is, look, I'm thinking of it. I'm looking at it that way because that's liberal conditioning. It's making me think like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'll give you evidence
You
for this.
understand what I mean by
I do.
abhorrence? Do you understand why I'm saying stage
I do.
prop?
I do.
Like, all of these things are a stage prop so that I will worship. I look at bad. People will say you need to have bad so that you can understand what good is. I don't get that bit, but if bad stuff is happening, so that I will then pray.
Let me give you some evidence, yeah?
That's a stage prop to make me pray.
Maybe this might inform your question somewhat. Justin Barrett did an Oxford study,
Okay.
where he looked at, a bunch of people over many countries, and this is an Oxford study, it's peer-reviewed, you can check it out, Justin Barrett, and he concluded that we have an innate disposition to believe in God.
Yeah.
So this again was a study that you can look at. Olivera Petrovich.
I come back to first mover on that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So now, based on that, and based upon the Islamic purpose, which is that life is a test. Now these obstacles are put in the way for us.
Stage props.
Stage props.
Would you say they're
Sure,
stage
sure. I don't mind that analogy. Yeah, or even if you've got like a stream, and then you've got these boulders in the way.
I'm going to get other people to suffer as a stage prop. I've got to reconcile that.
I would actually say that there's things happening in your life, because what you're referring to is theodicy, yeah? It's not something theodicy.
Theodicy.
So in the philosophy of religion, this is the argument, the problem of evil, right? And it's been dealt with. The only people that struggle to deal with this are Christians, because they proclaim that God is all good. Now, if God is all good and there's suffering, then there's an inherent contradiction. We don't believe God is all good. We say God is good, God is just, God is loving, He is merciful, He is, there's 99, attributes of God, right? He's not just all good and all loving, as they say. So we don't fall under that issue. If we do extrapolate this further, there's an argument that talks about soul growth, that it is through the obstacles, and there's many studies that have been done looking at 9/11 victims, looking at cancer victims, that when a trial happens in their life, how and what does it give them that makes them in a more advantageous position to somebody that hasn't gone through those trials and tribulations. Dostoevsky also looks into this as well and talks about it in his books as well. And that is, these things help you grow, become a better person, and a better person in society. So not only do they bring you closer to God and actually make you start thinking of the metaphysical, but they also improve the quality of your life, they inform you and your perspective in a much better way than just good things could. Because objectively, good things, you go to a beach, you relax, you take it easy. Or when something happens, people are like, yo, I didn't know I had this in me. And when that happens to them, because there's cameras, certain things have happened to me. Before that, I wasn't really interested in talking to people about those things. When they happen to me and somebody comes to me, a woman came to me and said something that happened to me also, I gave her the time of day. I could empathize with her. Because as a human being, we learn more from kinesthetic. You've got auditory, you've got visual and kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is the most powerful way of returning knowledge when it happens to you physically. So empathy. Yeah, empathy. And I would say that these things are layered. Yes, a person can say that, these things are there as a test and, they're there for you to recognize God, of course, but there are, secondary and tertiary benefits that it can do to the quality of your life and to the quality of life to the people around you. Some Scandinavian countries, they actually say we don't have grammar schools because we don't think it's beneficial. Even the rich people should go to the same schools as the working class so they can understand what they're going through and they can understand their struggle. So when they become a prime minister and a president...
Pseudo-socialism.
Well, whatever it is, but the mentality is still there that at least you can understand what these people are going through rather than going through Oxford, PPE and Eton and all that and being detached from the people. So it's about, you mentioned empathy, it's about going through and sitting with these people, understanding with the people. For doctors being raised with a silver spoon, he's not going to be able to empathize with his patients. So all of this, I think, contends to that one point that God is all powerful, He's all knowing. He's put these things in place. Why? Because they are beneficial for us, they're beneficial for the people around us, and eventually they're going to be objectively good because you're going to be in paradise, you're going to have a nice time there.
All right. Sir, thank you so much for the conversation.
My pleasure.
It's been really great talking to you.
Alhamdulillah, the pleasure was mine. I enjoyed it also. And I'll be here. If you have any...
One day I'll come and say hello.
Absolutely, but check out Lighthouse Mentoring Program.
I will. Yeah.
And
with keen interest, I'm going to read those two things.
Thank you so much.
All right, you take it.
care.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. You too.